Okay, we're here. Final episode, the finale, the grand finale. And in honor of just this great journey that we've been on, just decided that it'd be fun to kind of have a mailbag episode where we had some of you guys a couple of months ago submit, some burning questions. Fans that have followed me for a while know that I used to do this thing called Ice in the Hot Seat. And I would just answer questions that you guys had that kind of put me in a place where I had to, answer your questions. So we got some of those, and we're going to be going through them, and I'll be definitely getting candid.
The following is an exclusive presentation of the Ultimate Hoops Podcast Network.
Okay, so the first question, and actually this is a question I also thought of, but I didn't ask it. Susan P. asked it, and that is, would you ever consider running for political office, and why?
So to answer that question, I would say, first of all, I would consider that, but I am more of a very one step at a time kind of person. I don't see running for office as something that you just decide to do. It's a process, and for me, that's my idea is going to law school. So I've said that before, but I want to start with law school first, and I already have a good idea of where I want to go. As a matter of fact, let me just share this story. The reason why I decided law school. I mentioned this in my Players Tribune piece I did a year ago, called Full Circle. But basically, in 2010, I went back to Stanford, and I finished my schooling there. And then at the very end, I was able to get a meeting with Condoleezza Rice, and she was a professor there at the time, working at the Hoover Institute. She still does. She still is a professor there. And I got a meeting with her, not knowing what to expect at all. Just don't even know, like, the chance meeting I had with her. But I ended up getting to just ask her pertinent questions. And, it was right after I finished my schooling. So I was, like, freshly graduated, and I really needed a mentor. And I was just looking to her, not sure what she would say. And so I asked her, one of the questions I asked her was, I said, business school or law school? And I basically just kind of put her in that position of just seeing what she would say. Like, nobody should ever put someone in that position to answer that question. But she said law school, and I was more leaning towards business school for myself. And I think a lot of it was I just wasn't very sure of myself in terms of law school. That just seemed very daunting. It seemed like just completely opposite of what I would do, like, personally at that time. And she said law school, and I said, but what about business school? What about? She's like, law school. And then I think I asked one more time, are you and then she was just getting like, okay, look, I don't got that much time, law school. So I said, okay. And then I asked her which law school, which one, and whatever one she said, I'm like, and she said, doesn't matter. She said, doesn't matter. There's so many great law schools out there. There's so many of them. Just doesn't matter, but just continue your education. She really was so firm about that. And then she handed me her memoir. So I read her memoir, and I really realized why she'd said that and how the doors of her education, those doors opened so many. I mean, you know what I mean. And so that ever since then, it's scary thought. I thought about law school, and I actually would love to go to USD, University of San Diego Law School. My aunt is the vice dean there, Mary Jo. And so that's what I would love to do. And I would love to study constitutional law at USD. They have a very prestigious law school there. And that way, but I just want to have fun with it. I want to enjoy learning and all of that stuff. And so that's in the future. I obviously have immediate things that I want to do now while I'm still fairly young, but that is something that is in the foreseeable future. And then from there, I'd go from there with the public office. Would love to serve my community, start in San Diego, and, just kind of see how that is and just start after law school.
Very good, very good. Thank you, Susan P. That's a fantastic question. From Callan, other than the podcast, what are your other future plans post-basketball?
Well, first of all, thank you, Callan, always asking the best questions. Well, I think for me, I've kind of alluded to things, but just to make it very clear and concise, I stepped away from basketball. I walked away from the WNBA, and I just have this stronger passion that I'm developing for another sport. And I want to play volleyball. So I think I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to pursue that as much as I can without really people. You have to really understand kind of the world. The beach volleyball world is just a very it's a kind of a small little culture. So I have to get myself acclimated to that again. I'm moving back to San Diego, and my club coach, high school club coach, is amazing. And I talked about this in great depth on the volleyball podcast. But Ojan Barenbegi, he's the head over there at Coast Volleyball Club. And he, ever since that when I was, in high school, he would always tell me, whenever you'd want to cross over to volleyball, I'll be here for you. And, we'll be waiting here. And, volleyball just was kind of always on pause. So I think it's time for me to go back and just finish it. Now, that also would be other capacities as well. I would love to be engaged in coaching and just getting, like I said, myself back acclimated with the whole volleyball culture that I left so dramatically in college. And then I would say I also want to get into coaching, but not in the traditional kind of coaching. I would love to do just little life coaching things and get involved with my Wiggins Waves team that's based in La Jolla. My high school coach, Terry Bamford, she has amazing teams. I think it's like 7 or 8 teams in San Diego called the Wiggins Waves, and I would love to get back involved with them and just go back to, my San Diego life that I had before I went over to Stanford. So that's what I'm really trying to do, is just see where it goes from there. I always am a day at a time. I never look too far in the future because you just never really know what's going to happen.
Going back to an earlier podcast from the season, you had mentioned that you played for the Stanford volleyball team as a freshman.
Yes.
I think that was the Pat Summit episode, if I'm not mistaken. Very, 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 very interesting story. I did not know that about you, actually, until you revealed that. So very good, very good. Thank you, Callan. From Sarah H. If you could only read one book for the rest of your life, which book would it be?
Hi, Sarah. Great question. Sarah, you know very well, as I'm not sure if many of my listeners would, but I love reading. It's always been something that I've been connected to since as old as I could read. And I would say, not to be so cliche with my answer, but there's only one book that is all-consuming to me. It's the most dangerous book in the world, and that is the Holy Bible. And that definitely would be the book that I would just, if I was stranded on an island, would be my source. But in terms of the other book that I would say is a book that I can read over and over and over again, and just be just completely engaged in it every single time, is my all-time favorite book, which is Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. Not a fan of the author, which proves you can be into a book and not really like an author very much. I'm not a very huge fan of Orson Scott Card, the man, but the author, he's incredible how he built this story of Ender Wiggin, who I just really identified with. And I read this book in 8th grade, and I was at a time, and I had just gotten to my private school for the first year, and I was just feeling so isolated and from each environment that I just came from and I was in, and Ender just gave me someone to identify with. It's incredible. And then just kind of the time that he was in kind of reminds me of the times we're in now. It just seems like, everyone is just looking for leadership, and Ender was just such a brilliant character. And I just love the battle school. I loved the idea of, the competition of it all. And I just, like I said, I really identify with Ender, and I could read the story of Ender over and over and over again. Not a huge fan of Speaker for the Dead or any of the other Ender's Game series, the spinoffs. Like I said, Orson Scott Card he's kind of out there guy, and it's really kind of hard but he definitely hit a grand slam with Ender's Game, and I highly recommend it. It's a very easy read. I mean, I read it in 8th grade, so but it's actually a very, pretty mature book, and I know they used to, some sect of the military used to have it be required reading, so it's just a very good, talking about battle and war and things like that. So, and then I would say, just kind of piggybacking off of that, this summer in Minnesota, I've been going to the library all the time, and I've been just consuming myself with great reads that I would just, share. It's like kind of a summer reading list. I start off with Misty, which is Misty May Trainor's, her memoir, and it's incredible. Misty is like the GOAT. She's like the Michael Jordan of beach volleyball. And so her memoir is so cool because she's a Southern California chick, but she's not the typical volleyball girl. She's very just different. You have to read about her story, like just her upbringing. And then the coolest part is just her and Carrie Walsh and what they were able to do with beach volleyball is incredible. So I highly recommend that. I read a really cool biography on Wilt Chamberlain, and he's got an incredible story as well. And I really loved Stride Toward Freedom by Martin Luther King, and the introductions by my history professor at Stanford, Claiborne Carson. Really great book, moving into the civil rights movement. And then, because, now it's really important, I think, that we start to go back so that history doesn't repeat itself. Civil Rights Chronicle, The Struggle for African American Freedom. I also read that. It's a huge textbook, heavy, but really cool if you're looking for a good source on history and you can get to things fast and really skim through that. And then, again, I love my memoirs and biographies. So I also read I Never Had It Made by Jackie Robinson, his autobiography, which I had read parts of it and I kind of understood it, but to revisit, it was published in 1972. So he was removed from his baseball career, and he was actually, and it was really cool because this book is split in half, basically. It's like his life as a baseball player and his life post-baseball as a political activist. And, he was a Republican and got a lot of heat for that. Definitely changed, like wanted out of the Republican Party kind of towards the end and just stayed more neutral. Talked about his relationships with Martin Luther King and, to my surprise, Malcolm X. Revisiting that chapter was cool, and just seeing how Jackie Robinson grew up in Pasadena, California. He went to the same high school as my father did. And he was a personal hero to my dad. And he went to Pasadena City College like my dad did. So I'm really connected to his story. I know the streets. I know what he's talking about, where he experienced, his life, and then, UCLA. And then really the crazy part about I Never Had It Made by Jackie Robinson was that I couldn't believe, reading the stuff that he had to endure on the paper. It's just like I just really suggest people go back and just thumb through that book and just read that, and it'll really wake up your senses and the way he responded, because that's what it's people I think don't realize how he really responded, how he really truly felt about these things. People think, oh, he integrated baseball, he was so great. There's more layers to that. He was very angry. And but I love it. I love the book because it's really close to after Martin Luther King and Malcolm X got assassinated. So he has his commentary on that. And it's just really good book. Okay, I Never Had It Made by Jackie Robinson. And then I also am a huge lover of Freddie Mercury from Queen. So I read his biography, Mercury, written by Leslie. Her last name's slipping from my mind, but really good biography on Freddie Mercury. So, and see if I'm missing anything. Oh, and one of my all-time favorite last book on the summer reading list for 2016, summer reading list is by Lecrae, Unashamed, his memoir called Unashamed, and this just came out this year, so it's the newest book, and it's so cool because, again, I didn't know Lecrae would spend his summers growing up in San Diego. I didn't know that. He grew up in Colorado and in Texas. And by the way, Lecrae is a Christian rapper, and he just talks about just the dichotomy of his life and, him being such an anomaly of, the church feeling like no Christian can be a rapper, and then the rapper saying no rapper, or the church saying no rapper can be Christian, and then the hip hop community saying no Christian can be a rapper, and he's just like in this different space, and it's incredible. His music is incredible. He was nominated for a Grammy in the secular category. He opens up the book talking about him at the red carpet in the Grammys and just kind of how he always felt out of place. So I really, really relate to Lecrae, and then finding out that he grew up in San Diego really allows me to really relate to him. But I think a lot of people relate to that, and it's not what you think it would be. It's not a preachy book. He's been in that mind of the doubt. He was the number one person who would battle, Christians and say and call them hypocrites and challenge them. So he's in a really understanding space as a rapper and as someone who was always questioning his faith growing up, to become a Christian rapper and to be so, transformed in his spirit. Like, I just really love how he comes from that kind of position. So really great book that I also recommend. That's all.
Very good. Sarah H., thank you very much. This one comes from Nicole S., and this is one we've asked before, but we'll ask it again. Would you come back to the Liberty?
Well, Nicole, I would... let's say yes and no. If I did ever come back to the WNBA, I will say this. If I ever came back to the WNBA, the team that I would come back to is definitely the New York Liberty. That's the team that I would play for. That's the team I was planning on playing for another 2 seasons. I was planning on playing with the New York Liberty, but as of now, no, I will not be coming back to the WNBA. I walked away, and I am very happy, and I'm so proud of the career that I've had, and it was just a really great experience for me in terms of the things that I learned, the ups and the downs. I loved it all, but no, I will not. You will not see me in a New York Liberty uniform or any WNBA uniform, and that's all, folks.
You talk a lot about people asking you on dates a lot.
Yeah.
Would you mind going into a little bit of that?
Yeah. Well, okay. So I get this question, when I was playing, I would get this question a lot. Like, guys would just, they would hit me up, and I've heard every single pickup line you could ever imagine. But, I never talk about either. I never talk about like my personal life and my relationships. I'm very kind of don't ask, don't tell when it comes to that. But since a lot of people have asked, I feel like I might as well address it in this little, this capacity. But, so I always would say that my boyfriend was basketball, right? So my whole life, basketball was like my boyfriend. And then basketball put a ring on it in 2011. And I got married to the game when we won the championship, and I got a ring, and that was my marriage. So I was literally like married to the game of basketball, and I mean that wholeheartedly. So I would say that volleyball was always my little mistress, side chick that I would always flirt with and always wanted to leave and get back to. So I think that's all intact still. I'm still married to basketball, and I have a side chick. But in terms of like real like humans, I do have an MCM. I do, and he's a real person. He's a real, human being. And so my MCM is, if for people who don't know or people who are, late, because this social media stuff is crazy. But MCM is Man Crush Monday or Man Candy Monday. You could actually have MCE too, Man Crush every day. But so I have an MCM. And he's dope, and you can check him out. He's on my Instagram page. I posted it, and so yeah, that's him. So any guys you guys are wondering, and my MCM actually, just a couple of facts about him. He actually has the audacity to think that he can beat me one-on-one. Can you believe that, Reed? He truly believes he can beat me one-on-one, and it's crazy. So you know who you are, MCM. I hope you're in the gym right now. There's thousands of courts in New York, so you better be in the gym shooting and working on your game, because you already know what's about to happen. And I would also say, though, he's someone that he was definitely in the gym with me, and I really appreciate a guy who's, willing to get my rebounds and things like that. So, yeah, that's just... like I said, something that I've really been focused, and I pretty much stay focused. But yeah, I have a crush on a guy. So,
what's the craziest one-on-one battle that you, because I'm sure a lot of guys want to know, they want to play you one-on-one, and I mean, I'm sure they all think they can beat you.
Yes.
What's the craziest one-on-one story you have?
I mean, let's see, the craziest one-on-one story. Well, there was definitely this one guy who was really blabber mouth about it, really thought that he could win and just, just tore his heart out, Here's the thing, though. I mean, there's a whole long list. There's like a list of guys that I've played one-on-one, and it's not like, I think a lot of guys just have this idea. I don't know. They might have this idea that, I don't know, they've seen Love and Basketball one too many times or whatever, and they really are competing. And it's really hard for me because they're amateurs, I'm a professional and you're an amateur. So at the end of the day, that is the levels of skill and experience we're talking about. So then you have a whole nother extra layer of, the competition. But then it's like, especially like my boyfriend in college, for example, I remember we played one-on-one and I beat him, and that like ended us. Like after that, it could never be the same, And so for me, it's just, you got to be really careful because I don't really have a heart. Like my heart is so cold, and I really am just, it's not pretty, it's not a pretty, I literally rip your soul out. I tear your world upside down, tear asunder your illusions, and send the sanctuary of your own ignorance crashing around you. Like that's what I do when I play you one-on-one. So just ask yourself, do you really ready for that? So
I would love to play you one-on-one, but I have no doubt that I would lose, but it would be so much fun. We could tie that into a future episode.
That would be. Reed, are you good? Do you have skills?
I played a little bit in high school.
What do you think that you think you'd do well? Because that's the thing. It's like you're gonna have these expectations.
Sure.
And then when it doesn't happen, like, are you prepared for that?
I would lose. I'm 100% certain.
You're 100%.
Yeah, but I would give it my all, though, too.
Yeah, but you're 100%? Not even 99?
You just said it. You're a professional basketball player. I played high school basketball at a 2A school in West Central Minnesota.
And a lot of guys really do think, though, that they can just beat you. You know what I'm saying? Like, even high school level, like, they just feel like...
Well, I've been around... recreational basketball now at a full-time since 2012. I have never met, and I love these guys. Trust me, they're the reason why I have food on my table at home. I have a wonderful job. But I've never been around a more delusional group of people, to be honest with you. And again, I love them. I do.
Yeah.
But they all think that they're 1 to 15 times better than they actually are. And a lot of them are very good. And a lot of them are very humble, but that's rare. Respectfully.
Wow. No, you're right. You know what? I need to join this Ultimate Hoops League.
We have a league in Laguna.
Yeah, I know. I need to get but that's kind of far. But one of my goals is to join one of these leagues and just wreak havoc and just if I ever do come back to answer Nicole's question or people's questions that they ask to come back, I'm coming back in an Ultimate Hoops jersey. MVP.
I will definitely be using that quote and that video for something. So, okay, no, I have no doubt. I could maybe score a basket or two, but
yeah, no, okay,
but I would not win.
Yeah.
I'm 100% certain of that.
Reed, God bless you for that. Good for you. Like, thank you. I respect that. I really do.
I appreciate that you respect that. So,
are you one of the 99% of basketball players who never played professional basketball? Are you tired of trying to live your hoop dreams in the same old rec basketball leagues? At Ultimate Hoops, we believe that all basketball players should be treated like a professional. And with Ultimate Hoops League, we have completely revolutionized recreational basketball. With the Ultimate Hoops League, you'll get full online stats for every game, including box scores, videos, photos, power rankings, and your own personal profile that tracks your stats for your entire career. And you can compare your stats with the thousands of other Ultimate Hoops players across the US and Canada. Most Ultimate Hoops Leagues cost under $100 a season, which includes 8 regular season games played on Lifetime Fitness's professional quality basketball courts. No matter what your skill level is, the Ultimate Hoops League is the place to take your talents to. Join the largest recreational basketball league in America, the Ultimate Hoops League, by going to uhlife.com to get started.
Do you have a favorite movie or TV show?
Yes, I do. My favorite... My favorite TV show, and I can't even, it's kind of, I guess, guilty pleasure, a little bit, guilty pleasure. It's off the air now, but it was. I love Gossip Girl. I loved that show. It aired when I was at Stanford, actually. I missed a lot of, I had a lot of late nights staying up watching Gossip Girl in 2007. But so that's probably my favorite TV show. I mean, what's happening now? What's on TV? I don't watch much TV now. I'd have to. There are shows that I like if it comes to me. But movie, oh man, I love Waiting to Exhale. I love that movie, and I love the book. Terry McMillan's book, Waiting to Exhale, is better than the movie, but it's almost equal to me, in my opinion. And I just love it. I love, Whitney Houston, Angela Bassett, Layla Rashawn. Like, they were just so amazing, and so I love that movie. And let's see, there's another movie that I love Scarface. The movie Scarface is, and Trading Places, Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd. Trading Places is great. That's like one of our family's like favorite movie to watch. And I just think that, have you seen that movie?
I have not.
Oh my gosh. Read.
Trading Places?
Trading Places?
No, I'm sorry, I haven't.
Okay, it's Eddie Murphy and Dan Aykroyd.
Sure.
And it's so great. Dan Aykroyd plays this Harvard, like, he's an investment banker, and Eddie Murphy's like this, he's like he's like a homeless guy, like on the street trying to like steal stuff or whatever. And so the head people at the company, have you seen Coming to America?
Is that like a Whoopi Goldberg or something?
No. It's Eddie Murphy as well.
Okay.
Coming to America, Arsenio Hall and Eddie Murphy. You haven't seen that?
I don't think so. Maybe maybe when I was a little kid. Is it like early 90s movie?
It's like late 80s.
Okay.
Late 80s, early 90s. Okay. So, that's fine. Coming to America is an absolute classic. That should be number one. And then Trading Places is number two. And I just said that because Trading Places is actually the prequel to Coming to America. So you see what happens to these two guys, the main characters in Trading Places. You see what happens to them in Coming to America. And then it's like this whole, anyway, so it's about basically these two guys, these two old, super rich white men make a bet. And it's the amount of money for the bet is also a part of the plot as well. I won't give it away, but they basically make a bet saying that it is nurture over nature. So saying that you could switch places and make two random people, like someone in a high position, and you just give them opportunity and they'll succeed. So they actually ended up framing Dan Aykroyd. And anyway, him and Eddie Murphy switch places, and Eddie Murphy becomes, and it's just hilarious and it's so great. And Jamie Lee Curtis is in it, and it's just such a crazy, great movie, especially nowadays. Like, it's deals with race issues. I mean, Eddie Murphy in the 80s was just so brilliant, and how he tackled these issues of race and things like that. And then I love Scarface as well, gangster movies like that. And man, there's I'm gonna have to get back to that. I think maybe when I think about the other movies. Yeah.
Sure. What did you learn most about yourself while recording this podcast?
Oh man, introspective questions. I think that I definitely, finally, for the first time, took a step back out of myself and saw what I actually went through. Like, I actually, just talking about things that my journey, starting from even the first episode, when we went through, going from my rec league to all the way to here, just really understanding, like, truly, not just saying it and saying, okay, but truly getting to know myself and seeing, like, wow, I've done a lot. I've done a lot of things without a break. And it just really, to me, I was kind of just amazed that I'm here now, and it's kind of like all dawning on me very late right now. And so I think this podcast helped me understand that. And then I think that, just the nature of what happened. I think our season really took a turn when those turn of events happened. And I think you really helped too, Reed, and just that conversation that we had, and just opening up my world views a little bit. The whole time when you're an athlete, it's really, I know there's been a lot of debate. I mean, at this time it's probably, relinquished a little bit, but just the idea of, should they speak out? What do you think? And a lot of times as an athlete, you hold in so many things. You hold in your thoughts. You want to remain neutral. I think about Jackie Robinson touched on it so brilliantly in his autobiography about how you have to just be silent. You have to almost suffer in silence. That's the only way you can really be an effective athlete. You can only, the only rules and the only field, the only world that you're operating in is on the court or on the field. And that is it. That is the world. That is what people pay money to go see. They go to see you perform. They go to see you get away from the world issues. So I think for us, when this happened and it just exploded and we really tackled that, it started making me more aware of, with what my connection is to the world outside of the basketball court and what are my passions. And this really was a instrument to help propel my feelings. And I just think that it's really great because no better time for me in my transition in my life as I'm starting to just be more aware. And I think even with the athletes that are speaking out now, and I just applaud every single one of them, all of them, no matter what, I think they're just doing such a great job. But I couldn't imagine being really understanding the magnitude of what is happening in this big world, because you're just still consumed with that little small world that you're operating in. So I think that's what this really helped me, is just really see how big the world is and what my voice is in this big world.
What is the most frustrating question that you receive?
Well, I would say, I receive a lot of frustrating questions, but I think the one that is just frustrates me, and it really shouldn't, but are you Andrew Wiggins' sister, is probably pretty frustrating. But not where it makes me really angry, but it's just, I think because so many people now really think that, it's almost they're oh, that must be Andrew. Is that Andrew Wiggins' sister? It's and then it's no disrespect to Andrew at all, but no, no. And it's just, I think it's frustrating because there's such a disconnect, I think, between, myself and Andrew, but also just in terms of my history, who my father is and who my brother is and who we are as American Wiggins. We're not Canadian Wiggins. And just, I think it just makes me realize that, people, I remember even last year, for example, people were oh, this is Andrew Wiggins' sister. And it's just oh my gosh, no. And you can't really, you can't be offended by it. You can't really say anything back to it. But it's just, I think that would probably be the most frustrating question I get. But that's not even that bad.
I think it's kind of a lazy question. I mean, it's a Google search away.
Well, yeah, but yeah. But I think people just hear Wiggins and they just say, "Oh, you're black and your name's Wiggins. You're gonna
and you play basketball.
You play basketball." But that one just kind of blows my mind. I understand how big Andrew Wiggins is. I understand that, and I especially here in Minnesota, he's so big and he's such a big deal. And in the NBA world, he's young, he's fresh, he's happening, he's popping, But I just. I don't really like that being associated with that.
Sure.
Yeah. So.
Do you have any pets?
I don't, but I would want to get a pet. I would want to get maybe a little pit bull and maybe a Maltipoo and a Dalmatian or something. I want to have 3
Sure.
dogs. And I named them Archie, Betty, and Veronica or something.
Okay. Last question. What can listeners, fans, anyone look forward to from Candid with Candice Wiggins Season 2?
Well, in Candid Season 2, I really would love to just get more guests, get some really cool guests that you just wouldn't, you would love to hear from, and people that are very influential but quiet. Because I think that, that's the thing, is that this is a very, it's kind of a quietly loud podcast. So we'd get some more quietly loud voices and just a lot of fun. I'd really want more interaction. I would love to hear your thoughts and just maybe touching more upon what's happening in the world and maybe things happening as they're happening. Maybe we'll even get a Facebook Live episode and just getting, and then also really good lighting. I would love to get lighting in Season 2. No, the lighting here is great, but I think that I could get a little bit more flattering light. Cause no, I'm just kidding. Well, we do it black and white here, so that's not an issue at all. I'm just joking.
Well, for me closing out this season, I just wanted to thank you. This has been a ton of fun. Selfishly for me, it's been a ton of fun. The fact that I got to be on the other end of a line with Jesse Ventura, Tar Vanderveer, John Thomas, it was really fun. And I learned a ton. I learned a lot about you. I learned a lot about your perspective on things. Honestly, I just had a blast doing it. And I'm super excited for next season.
You're awesome, Reed. You're an awesome co-host.
Thank you.
You're going to have to edit that.
Yeah. Oh, I'll definitely will.
You're awesome. And, it was just thank you. Thank you to everyone who listened. Thank you for people who maybe you're listening a little bit late. Better late than never. We welcome every bandwagon listener that we can muster, because like I said, this is definitely, the content here is we really we really thought about everything, and I just appreciate you listening and taking the time and opening your mind to my world.
Thank you for listening to the latest episode of Candid with Candice Wiggins. Remember, you can subscribe to the Ultimate Hoops Podcast Network on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud, and listen and download other podcasts like The Wild Card with Luke Hanlon, Recreation Nation with Reed Nelson, The Dream League Insider, and the Short Corner Podcast. Thanks to Ultimate Hoops and Lifetime Fitness, who made this all possible. If you want to learn more about Ultimate Hoops and all of our basketball products, go to uhlife.com. We'll be back next week with an all-new episode of Candid with Candice Wiggins.